Have you ever wondered if there's a secret sauce for building a successful business? I'm not talking about just one time, but over and over again. Well, today we're diving into the incredible story of an entrepreneur named Darshan Bai, the genius behind huge brands like Fog Deodorant. He seems to have completely cracked the code for building a business empire, and we're going to break down his repeatable formula.
So what's the result of this formula? A staggering 16 successful brands. We're talking about an empire built on creating one hit after another, selling some of his companies for thousands of crores. These aren't just small wins, you know? These are massive, industry-defining successes.
And that, of course, brings us to the big question, the one we're all thinking. How? How on earth did one person pull this off time and time again across totally different products and markets? Was it just a string of lucky breaks, or is there something more going on here?
And the answer? It's refreshingly simple. It wasn't luck, it was a strategy. A systematic, repeatable blueprint that you can apply to pretty much any consumer category out there. And that's what makes this whole story so powerful. It's not about some kind of magic, it's all about the method.
So, let's pull back the curtain and look at this method. We're calling it the 4-step blueprint. It's a simple, but believe me, incredibly powerful framework for spotting opportunities and building brands that absolutely dominate.
So here are the 4 steps, the absolute core of the entire strategy. First, you choose a massive market. Second, you make sure there are high profit margins. Third, you create a product that is clearly different. And finally, number 4, you've got to be able to communicate that difference incredibly fast. All right, let's break each of these down.
Let's kick things off with the first 2 steps, because they're all about selecting your market. This is the foundation for everything. It's about choosing where you're going to compete before you even start thinking about a product.
The first rule is super simple. Go big. Don't even think about launching a product if the category is worth less than 2,000 crores. Why? Well, because you want to be fishing in an ocean, right? Not a tiny pond. A massive market means there's just more room for a new player like you to come in, grab a real slice of the pie, and scale up in a huge way.
Step 2 is where we get into the money side of things. You have to look at the big, established players in that market and make sure their EBITDA margin is at least 20%. Now that's basically just a fancy term for their core profitability. And this is a critical, non-negotiable filter.
But hang on a second. Why would you want your competitors to be super profitable? Isn't that a bad thing? It sounds completely backwards, I know, but there is an absolutely brilliant strategic reason behind this rule.
Okay, here's the logic, and it's genius. To break into a market and steal customers, you have to spend a ton of money on things like marketing. Now, if the existing players are only making a 7 or 8% margin, there's just no money left for you to spend. But if they're enjoying a fat 20% margin, that means there's enough profit floating around in the system for you to spend aggressively and still build a profitable business. It's like a war chest that's already built right into the market.
All right, so you've picked your battlefield. It's big, it's profitable. Now it's time for the really fun part, steps 3 and 4. This is all about creating a product that stands out and then telling its story. This is where you create your champion.
And the mental model for this is so simple and so powerful. Find a villain, create a hero. Your product needs to be the hero that solves a problem or gets rid of some annoyance. That's the villain that customers are just dealing with right now.
Let's look at a classic example, deodorants. For years, the villain was gas, you know? People felt like they were just paying for air that pushed the product out and it ran out way too quickly. The hero? A no-gas deodorant. It was a simple, powerful difference. You get more product, it lasts longer, villain defeated. Simple as that. Here's another one for you. Think about those old pain relief balms. The villain was the old-school black balm. It was sticky, smelled really strong, and worst of all, it would stain your clothes. You couldn't use it during the day, so what's the hero? A white, non-sticky balm. It solved every single problem. The villain was a mess, the hero was clean, convenient relief. And this is where it gets really clever, because the villain doesn't have to be a physical thing. It can be an idea, or even an unrealistic promise. For fairness creams, the villain became the idea that you can become permanently fair, which, let's be honest, a lot of customers just didn't believe. The hero offered a more practical, honest promise. You can look fair for a specific occasion. See how it shifts the story from an impossible transformation to a practical, temporary benefit?
And that brings us to the final, absolutely crucial piece of the puzzle. You have to be able to communicate your hero's story in under 30 seconds. No gas, non-sticky, look good for tonight. In today's world, if your unique value takes too long to explain,
you have already lost the battle.
So let's bring it all home. This isn't just a random collection of good ideas. It's a cohesive strategy, a real blueprint that you can use to look at any consumer market.
So here it is, one last time, the whole shebang. 1. Go big, into categories over 2,000 crores. 2. Find the money, targeting markets where the big guys have over 20% margins. 3. Find a villain so your product can be the clear hero that solves a real problem. And 4. Be fast. Get that value across in less than 30 seconds.
And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. Once you start looking at the world through this hero versus villain lens, you start seeing opportunities everywhere. So, what's a small annoyance, a frustrating feature, or an outdated promise that you see in a product you use every single day? What villain out there is just waiting for its hero?